Welcome to another edition of the Roar of the Lions UK podcast, episode 369, The Legion of Whom. My name is Matthew Turner, alongside Ashley Soden. How you doing, man?
Doing good. Kind of thankful that my watch ran out of charge overnight, so I got a nice long bit of sleep. Obviously, the game ended about 4 o'clock, half four our time. Didn't get up till two, half two, so nice and rested. Unlike Dan Gamble and his poor wife, who were out for coffee at 5:30 in the morning their time. But it's good. It's nice to go into the bye with a bit of optimism and a bit of a victory Tuesday mood rather than a bit the first time losing in nearly 3 years back to backs. That'd be nice.
Getting up this morning was a lot easier than having to live through Monday last week.
Yeah.
After Kansas City, I'll tell you that. Yes, the Lions are 5-2. We're breaking down the Tampa Bay game, going through some news and looking ahead to the bye and beyond. But first, please do join our Discord channel. We've built a fantastic community that I'm really proud of, and we'd love you, if you are a person of good high standing, to come and join us in that channel. The link is in the live chat right now. If you're listening on the podcast, it's in the description of the show. College Football Podcast is going to be back tomorrow. That's Wednesday, looking back at the week that was in college football. Lots of surprises again, lots of firings to go through. Ash is looking at me like there's something he doesn't want to talk about. I know there isn't, but there we go. Hey, anyway, life of an FSU fan. Please do like this episode, sub to the podcast, you guys know what to do by now, and support Lions Nation Unite at lionsnationunite.com and on the YouTube channel. Herman Moore's project, some of the best in Lions content creators together. News first up. Transactions since we last spoke with you on the podcast. Elevated for this game, cornerback Trey Flowers and safety Lauren Strickland. Of course, we knew coming into this game the Lions were banged up in the defensive backs, so that was not a surprise. Linebacker Ty Summers was waived. I think, Ash, you actually predicted that before that came out on our preview show, so there we go. Activated from the PUP, defensive tackle Lee McNeil, and what an impact he had. And then signed to the 53 from the practice squad at cornerback Arthur Mollett. And what an impact he had, too. Injuries, well, inactive for this game. Running back Sione Vaki continues to be out. Cornerback Terrion Arnold, who looks like he may be returning sooner than anyone thought, but not quite for this game. Defensive back Avonte Maddox, who is not a slot corner, as Ash pointed out on the live show. But there we go. And then safety Kirby Joseph could not make it. And you know what? None of that bloody mattered. Injured during the game, running back Craig Reynolds had a hamstring injury. No word on him as yet. Guard Christian Mahogany had a shoulder, although he returned to the game shortly afterwards. Linebacker Zach Cunningham had a hamstring injury, and then both Rock Yassin and Arthur Mollett corners were hampered with cramps. Rock had to convince them to let him back on the field, only to have him go off again, go to the locker room, come back out, and then get on the bike and try and get out there again. Mollett had his issues, came out, went back in again. Given that both of them were cramping, that's an interesting one. I think Ash should come on to that in just a second. And then other news just on the other side of things in this game. The real unfortunate news about the Mike Evans injury came out very shortly after the game. He's broken his clavicle and he's out for most of the year. He clearly suffered some sort of concussion. He was out completely on the turf when he hit the ground, so that was a real shame. Just feel for the guy. People talking about, is that the last snap of his career? I think it's in very poor taste to be discussing that sort of thing. Just like, let's hope for him to recover first and then see, once he's fine and healthy as to whether we can have that conversation or not. Just hope that he's okay. So, yeah. Lots going on there, Ash. Some you predicted. Some things went really well. The injuries, I think, especially the ones in-game, are a particular concern. I mean, none of them are really, really big guys, bar Mahogany. And I mean, the DBs are big now because of our lack of players in that room, although they weren't big players coming into the season necessarily. You'll probably tell me you thought Rock Yassin would be, but he was always going to be a reserve, right? They're ever more important as our depth thins.
Yeah, so starting with those injuries, like Yassin, especially with the Rachel thing, he was probably our top reserve on the outside that wasn't named Amik. And it for both of them, I think it's just because they're not used to playing that much football. Like Yassin, the past couple of years, been a rotational guy, depth reserve, playing special teams more. Same. So it's kind of a shock to the system for them to basically be starters for the entire game. And as you say, they did pretty well. Mahogany, yeah, I think that was just a shoulder stinger, supposedly. Yeah, he was rubbing his arm, he went off. Arashika came in for those couple of plays, and then the next series, Mahogany was back. So thank God for that, because, we need him. The other two, seemingly on kickoffs, like Cunningham, he's already been out for a while with a hamstring injury. This is his first game back, and he suffers another one. I think he's just pulled the same injury again, but this time we're not going to be as nice to him as we were this time. Like last time, we just had him on the 53. We signed Ty Summers to basically play that role. Let's hope he hasn't checked out of his hotel room, because we'll probably need him back on the roster pretty soon, because the team likes that sixth line back of special teams. And then Craig, again, on a return, even though he's not a primary returner himself, he plays all of them. And it sucks because I know we've got 5 running backs on the roster right now, with the obvious 2, Craig, Varkey, who's still out with his injury, as you can hear, that as Lola's reminded me, and then Jacob Sailors. Probably means more workload for Sailors in special teams. Hopefully he can turn it into a roster move like long term, because as everyone knows, I always look at the bottom of the roster and see who's the most replaceable, and Craig's unfortunately getting into one of those players, so it might be Sailors' time to take over as that running back 3-4. The rest is to be expected, as I predicted Tyson, because Cunningham was coming back off that hamstring injury, so I hope he hasn't gone too far. Flowers Strickland makes sense. I know people wanted Kendall Fuller, but it seems he's just not fully integrated yet. I know I wanted JB Robinson to be active instead of Strickland, play that special teams role. But obviously, that's just stroke for them to actually elevate Strickland, because we needed him with the injury to Mallet. Hallett, who was playing strong safety, had to go into the slot, and then we had to bring Strickland on. But obviously, the big news was Aleem, and, as we're going to in a bit, literal second snap of the game, he's there, double team, pushing him back into Bacon, disrupting his throwing rhythm. So thank God we've got him back, because he really helped. I know obviously we want to talk up the secondary and what they did, but they were definitely helped by the fact that the pass rush was there today.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, let's get on to the game itself. Lions walked out 24-9 victors. Goff went 20 of 29 for 241, a touchdown, a pick, and a fumble. Jahmyr Gibbs, 17 carries for 136 yards and 2 touchdowns, also 3 of 3 for 82 in the air. Should have had a receiving touchdown too, instead of 2 rushing ones, but hey, Saul can't make every block. Even he is human, apparently. Aaron Russell Brown led the team in receiving 6 of 10 for 86 and a touchdown, and he also had a good day. On offense, on the other side, Buccaneers were led by Baker Mayfield, 28 of 50 for 228, a touchdown and a pick and a fumble. Rachaad White, 10 for 38, and then Tez Johnson led the team 4 of 9 for 58 and a touchdown. Defensively, Lions led by Eric Hallett and Jack Campbell with 8 tackles apiece. There were 4 sacks, 1 by Jack Campbell and Derek Barnes. Tyrus Wheat had 1 by himself and shared 1 with Al-Qadim Mohammed. There was also a TFL, which was for Jack Campbell as well. The Lions suffered 4 sacks in this game, 1 each for Tyke Smith, Savossier Dennis, Anthony Nelson and Yaya Diaby. And there was 3 other TFLs, 1 by Tyke Smith, 1 by Levante David, 1 by Yaya Diaby. In fact, there's an extra one there. I must have miscounted. And Vita Vea had a TFL as well. As I mentioned about there being picks, Jamel Dean had a Tampa Bay one. Not the best throw by Goff. Not a great decision. We'll talk about the actual throw itself. There are mitigating circumstances, but it's a tough throw he's trying to make there anyway. And then Arthur Mollett just nicking the ball off Cade Otton before they go to the ground. Fantastic heads-up play. Jake Bates went 1 for 2, missing a 54-yarder, but then coming back and hitting a 58-yarder, 3 for 3 on extra points. And Jack Fox was incredible. 5 punts. There's that tricky bit in the middle of the game for both teams where they kind of went punt for punt, and he was 5 for 256, being an average of 51.2 with a long of 66. Ash, high level. This game was a struggle on offense for both teams. I think, for me, what really stands out is that the Lions got their scoring done quite nice and early and therefore kind of always felt in control. It felt like Tampa Bay were always kind of fighting against going behind in a really big way and succeeding, but the damage kind of was already done.
Yeah. I think I said it near to the end of the stream yesterday. The Bucks just suffered from what we did last year, where the game plan just wasn't there for them. The run game wasn't really effective for them. So Baker had to put it on his back and try and carry the team in the same way that Goff had to last year, and it just didn't work for them. We got the pass rush help we needed to sort of disrupt him, as I say. It's literal second snap of the game, and Liam's there, strong arming, a double team into him and disrupting his rhythm. And the pass breakups on the line as well forced him to start throwing higher, get a bit more elevation on them to try and avoid the defensive line breaking up on the passes. And it meant he was just overshooting his receivers. Like, offensively, we did okay. Would have been better to obviously not stall out, as we said, but this defense, man, Shep is just, I think we both said it at the end of the yesterday. Shep, so I don't want to say he's a massive upgrade on AG, but in terms of what he's had to do with less, like AG had to last year, absolutely masterstroke him on the defensive game plan.
Yeah, incredible game plan. There was a lot made of it. I've seen a lot of articles on the Tampa Bay side because obviously having to diagnose what's happened. SI for Tampa Bay suggesting that it's the highest rate of man coverage on obvious passing downs that Tampa Bay have faced this season, and it works exceptionally well. I do have to say that as much as it was a fantastic game plan, I really thought that both quarterbacks were borderline poor, if not outright bad. Goff had some nice passes, and some of the nice passes he had were just really quick stuff in the flat to Gibbs, which was schemed up really well, but it's put in the right place for that to succeed. And that's a skill that a lot of quarterbacks just don't have. So I'm not going to overlook the fact that he did small things well in that regard. And there are a few play-action passes on time that really stand out. The initial touchdown to Amon-Ra St. Brown doesn't happen without good timing. So, Goff had good plays, but they were few and far between. That was the reason why more points didn't go on the board. On the other side, that's Baker Mayfield's worst game in a long time. We've looked at him as being one of those premier quarterbacks in the league now. His stock has kind of fallen from, when he left the Carolina Panthers and went to the LA Rams. It was like you could have picked him up for a bag of chips. And he's rebuilt himself, I think, in a low-key way, in a bigger way than Jared Goff has had. Yes, Goff was dumped, but in a way that someone actually wanted him. No one wanted Baker Mayfield. So low-key, he's rebuilt himself in an even bigger way. And to have this sort of stinker of a game was super disappointing. Just as a neutral watching this, his PFF grade was 46.7, which is the lowest of the year. If I roll that back another season,
probably the lowest since week 3 last year against Denver.
No, and that it wasn't even in the bottom 5 games last year for Baker Mayfield. Actually, apparently, his worst was against Carolina in Carolina week 13. But regardless, he has become a pretty consistent quarterback who always puts his team in a position to win. I don't ever feel like Tampa Bay were in a position to win in that game. Even when they were driving in the fourth quarter down 15, it was like, oh, well, even if they score, okay, I just don't think we're losing this game.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you probably saw face recognition when you said that. I think that Carolina game was the first one he had without Godwin and Evans last year. It was one of them, so it makes sense. But the reason I pointed to them for one is because obviously no one was the one after us last year, but that was the last time before today that Tampa Bay were held under 10 points. It's been a long while, and even, as you say, when Baker was playing bad last year, they were still able to put points up on the board. And I know, obviously, we always go for the drive-by-drive, but the fact that their first few drives were punts, pretty much all 3 and outs or 4 and outs, they didn't really get onto the board until the end of the half, where they got that field goal where we kind of let them get it with some really soft coverage. They got the touchdown afterwards, went for 2, and then that was it. Punt, downs, end of Teddy Bridgewater kneels at the end of the game. We put the clamps on someone who, coming into this game, was getting a lot of respect. MVP candidate, everyone knows about the chance last week and the whole Tez Johnson thing. Even though Goff's arguably been up there as well, Baker came in with a lot of momentum behind him, and people were like, this could be like his sort of crowning game. This is like his big win. And the fact that, we got to him and disrupted him and made him look bad, and we got him so snarky that he was trying to argue that the Jake Bates field goal didn't go in, and you've got people micro checking everything and saying, "Oh yeah, his sack should have been by Tyrus Wheat should have been a tripping penalty," and all this. They, Baker and arguably some of their fans, I don't want to pinpoint all Bucks fans because quite a lot of them are quite nice. There are some fans that are acting like how we, us Lions fans, were accused of acting last week after the Kansas City game. I think that's the kind of thing where we put such a good game out there that, people are having to turn to those things, and people are saying, "Oh yeah, New York did the second review to try and win favor back because of the refs use suck chance and all this and trying to make up for last week." That's how good of a win it was that people are looking for all these extenuating circumstances, trying to make an asterisk of it because they're that embarrassed by the performance. We came out and we embarrassed the Buccaneers in the same way that the other team playing got embarrassed on the other Monday Night Football game, as we're going to in a bit when we go through the game by game, probably. But this is why we're such a good team. First in 3 primetime games now, won 5 straight Monday Night Football games. What more can we say?
All right, let's go through a bit of drive summary. So the Lions get a touchdown on their first possession. Gibbs in the flat for a big play on the second play off the game for 30 yards. The actual drive is extended by an illegal contact by Jacob Parrish. Without that, I think we were maybe in a position for a long field goal at that point, but that allowed us to carry on. Great pass through to Amon-Ra St. Brown on the crosser, as I mentioned, beating Jacob Parrish for 27 yards for the touchdown. PAT was good and going up 7-0. And then, obviously, we've been a victim of many first drive touchdowns this season, but it didn't happen here. It was a great return initially by Cameron Johnson of Tampa Bay, got him all the way to like the 45 or 40 of Detroit, but Kayvon Merriweather had a big hold in there that set him all the way back. I think it was like a 45-yard loss or something. It was a bit rough. First play of the game, Rachaad White lowered the helmet and hit Eric Hallett. I am going to be very surprised if he does not get fined for that, because it was an egregiously bad play, dangerous play by Rachaad White. Mayfield's slip gave Jack Campbell a sack on second down, the resulting third down. Nice throw to Shepard, gave him a chance to get the first down, but Amik just threw him out of bounds. It was a really heads-up play for Amik, who was excellent all day. Next drive, Detroit moved the ball on offense. Amon-Ra wide open for a chunk play of 24 yards, beating zone coverage with a post out. But then Goff, when you're in position for at least a field goal, was stripped by Yaya Diaby. Bit of an effort sack, eventually beat Decker around the outside. Goff's internal clock not working, and that was recovered by Elijah Roberts. Puts Tampa Bay in reasonably good field position, but they put themselves behind the sticks. False start by Otten started off, a tip ball by Campbell, and then a screen to White blown up by Jack Campbell for 3 and out. Now, that was really well blocked in front of him, so if Campbell doesn't get there, that's getting converted. So, nice heads-up play, second consecutive 3 and out. And, you know, we had a turnover, and the defense really stood up, and that happened throughout the game. Detroit take over on offense, a 10 and out timing route to Amon-Ra St. Brown for a 16-yard gain. Again, beating zone coverage. You don't want to give Amon-Ra zone coverage. That does not go well for you. 2 big runs by Gibbs to get a first down, then Goff with a keeper for 6. Flat throw to Gibbs for 24. Sam Laporta's blocking on that rep was exceptional. And then Gibbs, run up the middle, blown up by Vita Vea and Yaya Diaby for a TFL. Goff to Raymond for a 7-yard gain on 3rd and 9 on 4th and 2. Have a little go ball to Tesla, incomplete. Question as to whether there could have been DPI there. I think it would have been soft if that was given. Resulted on a turnover on downs. It was definitely a little tug. It was... I've seen it given, and I've seen it not given. When the refs kind of let the players play, you'd like that to not be given. If they're throwing flags here, there, and everywhere, you'd love to see that given. As it is, it's a low percentage play, but one you've seen Tesla make. The throw by Goff isn't fantastic, but Tesla does have the jump on his man. So, you know, it's one of those, unfortunately. But I'll stop there. At the end of all of this, Ash, the Lions have had 3 big drives. They've got into field goal scoring range all 3 times, coming out with a touchdown, a turnover on downs, and a strip sack. You know, we're moving the ball. It's coming in chunks. Run game not really going at this point. Extensions of the run game kind of working better than the run game itself. defense for 2 3 and outs. It felt like a very weird game because at this point, Tampa Bay take over, driving to go level again.
Yeah, exactly. Like, let's start with the bad. So the strip sack. We think we both said it with that. Yeah, the clock was just not there for Goff. You should feel that the pressure's not like the play's not there. Find a way to get rid of it. Either you turf it in front of a receiver or you get out the tackle box and you throw it away. You think he definitely got better on later in the game, but you could tell that the pressure from Tampa Bay was just getting there today against Goff. The pass protection wasn't fully there. The fact that, yeah, we'll get onto it. Dex got a really good pass blocking grid, but that happened. They were getting pressure. They were getting hurries on Goff at certain key downs, and it really did not help things. And then, yeah, the fourth down decision. Yeah, it's a 50-50 call. Like, we've seen it, not like the given, not given. But there's also, I think, depending on the looks, the replays you look at, you've got JMO coming open around the same time on the right hand side of the formation. Amara supposedly open for the conversion. I get the point of why the play call. It's they expect us just to go for the conversion here. Let's just try and do the aha gotcha moment to go for the touchdown. Eerily reminiscent of Ben Johnson. There's a couple of times last year, well, throughout his time here as offensive coordinator, where he was the smartest man in the room syndrome got to him and he did these kind of play calls. Hopefully this is the only one we have from Morton. We learned from it. We don't have it again because, yeah, not what we needed. But the good is we got the touchdown initially, the first drive, where we have struggled at a bit. Obviously, last week wasn't helped by New York, but touchdown, great throw from Goff. That's the good Goff, the one that we really wanted to see. But the defense, I know I jokingly say that Jack Campbell's sack shouldn't count. Like, that's not really a sack, but it is a sack on the stat sheet. Really helps with there. But the defense, like, the key to that is obviously the third down blow up by Campbell for the TFL. Just read the screen perfectly. He saw the formation, was like, the running back's there, this is empty. I should go be there because I think this is for him. And you see it soon as the snap's off and you can see the blocking. He was down on it and gets the TFL. That's the kind of stuff that we wanted from the defense. Then we kind of did need their help away because Goff put them in this situation by not throwing the ball away, losing it on the strip sack. The defense was there, punch for punch, the complementary football. Right, okay, you've got us in a bad decision. We're going to dig you out of it. Get the free and out. We get the ball back. But it wasn't a perfect start to the game, but it was pretty good for the circumstances of you having a turnover on your second drive. Not much more we could have done, maybe.
Moving on from here, Tampa Bay take over after the turnover on downs. Deep throw to Mike Evans and a great catch against Rock Ya-Sin. His bum hits the turf before he goes out of bounds. DPI is called on Rock Ya-Sin, and they do accept the call just in case he might have been out of bounds. I think they would have been fine. Mike Evans looked pretty aggrieved on the sideline that they didn't end up declining that, and they would have been fine, I'm pretty sure. 3rd and 3 after this, batted pass by Aleem McNeil. They're near midfield, but this is a conservative team, and so they punt from there. I'd have gone for that. Detroit, play-action screen to David Montgomery for 15. Might have been his only play with a positive success. I don't know, but it felt like it watching this game back. Monty running up the middle, TFL again by Vita Vea for a loss of 2. False start on Sewell put us really behind the chains. Amaras and Brown got 12 on second and 17 on the slant, but then Goff sacked by Savossier Dennis, who cleanly beat David Montgomery. Brilliant rep by Savossier Dennis, by the way. If you want to have a look at how to be a linebacker and beat a running back in Pass Pro, it's an absolute clinic. So that caused a punt. Tampa Bay, massive overthrow by Baker on 1st and 10. 3rd and 6, Otten made the catch at the sticks. This one actually was given as a first down. Another deep throw by Baker, but Tez Walker just stopped the route, so they're clearly not on the same page, or Tez didn't think he could make it. 3rd and 6, a great play by Rock Ya-Sin. A throw to Evans was caught, had 1 foot in, but Ya-Sin really put everything into it to chuck him out of bounds before he could get the 2nd foot in. That forced a punt. So back-to-back punts here. False start on Decker. Tampa Bay flinched at the line, but they didn't jump into the neutral zone. He reacted to it. Deservedly gets a false start for that one. You can see why he reacts the way that he does, but they just didn't come forward far enough. Causes 1st and 15. Nice run by Gibbs, but a flag sets it back again to 1st and 17. So the second straight drive where the Lions are in a bit of a hole on 1st or 2nd down. 3rd and 6. Goff skips it to Raymond, but illegal contact extends the drive. That was by Jamel Dean. The very next play, Jahmyr Gibbs runs up the gut and then breaks out to the right-hand side, untouched for a 78-yard touchdown. Do you think that's going to help the yards before contact statistics? It might. So I think it's arguable, that the touchdown on the first drive is extended by an illegal contact. The touchdown on this drive is because of a drive extended by illegal contact. Tampa Bay shooting themselves in the foot here. Those drives should have ended with maybe 3 points and a punt. Instead, it's 14 points here that they've given up. And we won by 15. And they had an unsuccessful go for 2. That's the real difference in the game here for me. So that causes it to be 14-0. Fantastic blocking in that rep, especially Ratledge, Sewell, Khalif, and Raymond on that right-hand side, just opening up big holes. And, once Gibbs is out in the open, you're not going to catch him. Tampa Bay, next drive, deep shot from Baker to Evans, knocked out. Baker, he was knocked out on that play, obviously, with the broken clavicle. It was really well contested, I think, by Rock Ya-Sin. Sticky in coverage as you can be, contests it without causing a DPI. At some level, you have to let the offensive player go for it and just be combative. He did that, probably causes the injury just because of how aggressive you're being. Goes up, heavy contact. It's something you can't avoid. It's just part of playing football. It's a real shame, but there we go. So that really hurt Tampa Bay from here on out. On the same drive, Baker sacked on 3rd and 5 by Barnes. All credit to Al-Qadim Mohammed for that rep. Baker either looks to have a little check down to the left-hand side or escape that way. Al-Qadim manages to get in the block escape lane and passing lane to force him inside so that Barnes can clean it up and forces a punt. So two straight punts for Tampa Bay here. Next drive, J-Mo has an OPI on the right-hand side for a push-off. On the coverage, they said it was weak. Live, I thought it was a good call. Looking back, it does look a little bit weak. There were 2 flags on that play. Jamel Dean had at least holding, if not illegal contact or DPI or something like that, which was more obvious than the OPI. But that flag was picked up and the OPI was not. Yes, there were refereeing problems, potentially in Lions' favour. There were absolutely flags that should have gone in the Lions' favour or flags picked up in the Lions' favour. They did not go their way in this game as well. That is one of the more obvious ones. Goff had a batted pass by Elijah Roberts on 3rd down, about 5 yards deep in the end zone. So get away with not having a safety there or indeed maybe a touchdown. It starts off a massive referee suck chant. It was so loud it was drowning out the announcers, which was just legitimately funny. Getting deep into the second quarter here, Tampa Bay's first play, a forced fumble by Amik Robertson on Sterling Shepard, recovered by Hutch. Excellent peanut punch, really well timed. He's actually swinging his arm before Shepard adjusts where he's putting the ball, and he puts his fist right where Shepard's trying to place the ball. The fact that Shepard was moving it actually caused the fumble. Shepard's doing the right thing, I should point out. But, incredible rep by Amik, and well done by Hutch for getting back on the ball. So straight after that punt deep in your own territory, suddenly you've got it in plus territory. But the Lions' offensive play calling, especially when they get turnovers, is, I think, questionable. 5-yard Monty rush to start off, but then a Diaby TFL for a loss of 2 on Monty, and then Goff with a really low pass to Jameson Williams over the middle. And then a 54-yarder was pulled left by the kicker. That gave Tampa Bay great field position. Their first play, Baker throws it to K-Dot and ripped away by Millette. Play was initially given as a Tampa Bay ball. It was overturned in Detroit's favor after review. It was a good call. Otten never had control of the ball. He only ever had control of the ball because Millette gained control of the ball. So it was joint control. But favor here went to the defense. Not often seen, but it was the correct call. And anyone who wants to complain about that on the Tampa Bay side isn't watching the play. So, 2 plays, 2 turnovers back-to-back for Tampa Bay on offense. The first time the Lions had a 54-yard try pulled left. This time, the Lions again go 1-yard run by Gibbs. Goff quick throw to Amon Ross and Brown for 8. And then Goff just gets a first. So they actually do get a first down. but then a massive sack on the next play by Tyke Smith, a brilliant safety blitz. Sewell doesn't pick it up, tight end doesn't pick it up, running back doesn't see that coming at all, and least of all, Goff with a massive hit. The fact that he didn't see it coming, I think, probably helped absorb the contact. If you see it embrace, that might have hurt a lot more. The very next play, Goff throws the pick to Jamel Dean, so Goff was prevented on following through on the pass. There was a defender there who didn't hit him, but his body was in the way so that he couldn't follow through with his arms. Kind of prevented him from getting the sort of power on the throw he wanted to get. But Dean was meant to be the flat defender here, covering a wide receiver, but he actually had some help from a linebacker, so he could actually get a little bit more depth than Goff was looking for. Goff underthrowing it slightly, those two things collide, makes it one of the easiest picks of the season. So, in very quick succession, you've got turnover by Tampa Bay, missed field goal, turnover by Tampa Bay, turnover by Detroit. It's a really tumultuous time in the game coming up. We're into the 2-minute warning here. I think there's about 30 seconds left in this half now. And Tampa Bay go very quickly. Shepard with a quick reception to get them just in fringe field goal range, but then a pass to Tez Walker for very much in field goal range, and a 53-yarder is good. And Tampa Bay, Ash, escape this first half, only being 14-3 down. They've turned over the ball lots, as we've just been through. They've given up a 78-yard touchdown to Gibbs, all these illegal contacts, and lots of just overthrows by Baker. Nothing kind of going right. I think they had something like 60 yards of total offense or something insane by the half, and yet they're only 11 points down. They're going to get the ball back. It didn't feel like we were in trouble, but it just felt totally unfamiliar that we were only up by 11.
Yeah, I kind of joked, didn't I, that, this feels like it should be 28-3, not 14-3. Obviously, going off the jokes to do with the Super Bowl. But yeah, it was a weird sort of second quarter-ish, like the full start on Decker. Like, he's a veteran. He should know better than to not, stop points if they don't go into the neutral zone, stuff like that. The Gibbs run was just perfect. I remember I called it out. That's because it was the same defensive formation that they had for the TFL and Monty the drive before. I saw them line up as like, hang on, come on, Goff, spot this. Like they've got, and they just had the perfect play call for it, the draw. Everyone on the right hand side did their jobs, just opened up a lane. And as Gibbs said himself after the game, all you had to do was run straight. Winfield has a band angle on him, and he's gone, just completely gone. And I know obviously there's all these stats that now the top, he hit like 22.3 miles per hour on the carry, it's the second fastest run of the season so far, behind only Jonathan Taylor on his massive screen touchdown a few weeks ago. And number 3 is also Gibbs, and then obviously Goff in his post-game press jokes, "Oh yeah, I'm right behind him. I'm number 3 on the thing." They're like, "Oh yeah, we'll go check." It was just a weird time because we had the good plays like that and the 3 and outs. We got the play by Yasin to chuck Evans out of bounds. Such a good heads-up play by him. The bat pass by Aleem must be getting just. Tyleek was getting all of those. He had to go and get it himself. The big one in terms of the game, though, was the play to Evans, because he was their big get out of jail free card receiver, obviously because of the kind of receiver he is. If there was a 50-50 jump ball situation with Evans, that's more of a 70-30 in their favour. So him getting knocked out of the game, both literally and metaphorically, was a big blow to their offense. And you're quite right when you said it. It's the perfect play by Yasin, that he's been aggressive with it, but it's the perfect play for it. The Tampa Bay fans that are trying to say that should have been DPI and all that need to have their eyes checked, because no. And yet they're still claiming that you can go on Twitter, as I referred to earlier, and they're doing all the lines, the refs paying for the Lions. Then, as we say, with the one with the JMO PI, which I say was a bit weak on the thing, because it did look like it was just him disengaging from the hand fighting, which is allowed. Right on the other side, you had Jamal Dean's practically hugging Khalif Raymond, and yet that's picked up, and yet people who tried to claim that we had the refs help in this, what the hell? But there was just still good plays from it. As I say, the touchdown to Gibbs, the heads-up play from Yasin on the 3rd down, the interception by Millette, where, he recognises that Otten doesn't have full control of the ball, just goes and steals it out of his hands. The peanut punch by Amik, where, it's funny that when they brought in this new rule about, if you go for a peanut punch and you miss the ball and punch the player, it's a personal foul. And they used us as the example of not what to do. And yet in this game, we were going for those left, right, and centre. We do not care. And yet, as you say, going into the half, it felt weird that we should have been up a lot more, and it was a bit wary because, as we know, with the Bucks, aside from their big game the week before, they were always in these close games where it was close going into the final minute and they could just pull it out. And it did feel a bit ominous that, oh God, there's still only 2 scores behind. They get the ball to come out the half. They could easily come within 1 score. They could really stay in this. And then we make a couple more mistakes like the Goff interception and they're leading the game and they're gone. It did feel very ominous. Though obviously I do stick that, yeah, Goff, I think it was Vaya that stopped his follow through, and it meant that because it did just look like a really bad pass from him. Like, what did you see? But obviously, Vaya stops the follow through. It means he just doesn't get the full lever on it, and Dean's just in the perfect zone drop. You say he has dealt from the linebacker. He has a bit more depth, and he's just able to. It just falls right to him instead of to Aaron run the comeback route. Like, just a good play by their defense. But yeah, it was ominous that they could have easily kept themselves in it coming out the half, and then suddenly it'd be a ball game again.
Yeah, on the deep pass to Mike Evans, where they were saying it's DPI, there's something that people, I think, have to understand about what DPI is. And it is that whole bang-bang nature of plays that's talked about all the time. If you watch it in real time, it doesn't look like a foul. If you slow it down, there's no doubt he gets there slightly before the ball. But it's so close that it's basically at the same time. It's perfectly played in my book. Now, I understand why Tampa Bay fans are going to be annoyed at that, because he did get there early. There's no doubt. But I don't think it was sufficient enough to be flagged. Having said that, if the flag had gone against us, I would have accepted it, because the evidence is physically there that it happened. So it's one of those in a game where there were lots of one of those. The JMO one didn't go our way 2 different ways. For example, yes, maybe not as consequential a play as a 50-yard pass downfield compared to a 15-yard pass downfield, but so what? A decision's a decision, one way or the other. The referees aren't going to give one to you just because it's a 15-yarder, not a 50-yarder. So you've got to take these decisions and kind of go with it. And yes, we complained about Kansas City not going our way. Well, this regime has preached about overcoming or not allowing the rest to become a factor. They didn't do that last week. They did this week, for better or for worse. It's just one of those things. And I mean, Tampa Bay have been so good, it hasn't been an issue until you've had a game like this. So
Exactly. And the main thing we were moaning about last week was just the clear, at least with this, as you can say, there was calls each way that could have gone each way, like the tripping one and the wheat sack we'll get into in a bit. That could have easily been called for that. It was just people actually, listened and actually watched the game against Kansas City Chiefs instead of saying, oh, no, it's fans moaning. It's the fact that KC were doing all these things, it wasn't getting flagged. And then the obvious one that, as I say, I will not get off my high horse about until, they come out and actually state the truth. The fact that New York illegally came in and adjusted the play. New York came into it. It was in the rules. Like, literally, usually was we'll get into a bit. The first thing I did when all these reviews come in is go and check what is reviewable, what is allowed. So it was allowed. It annoys me. That's why I've had to mute some people on Twitter today, which isn't me. I'm the up there. I'm up there with Ant for trolling and combating on Twitter. Even I'm getting that. I just can't be asked with these people.
Yeah. Let's get into the second half, and I might try and do this all in one go because a lot less happened in this one. Tampa had a big long drive to start. Baker play action crossed to Ibuka for 18. White had a run for 7. A play action throw to Ibuka was broken up by a Meeks back. I mean, Ibuka had it 2.5 yards of separation over the top. Baker, for once, didn't overthrow it. He couldn't find his range. White had a run for 1, had balls stripped, but only after forward progress had been called. Dan Campbell didn't challenge this. I think that's probably a good idea. I think that they did whistle it dead a bit too quickly, and the Lions could have had another turnover there if they just let it play it out, because I think there was a reasonable prospect that White could have regained some forward progress. So I think that the refs are a little whistle happy there, to our detriment. Not one you'll hear heard about too much, but, it is one of those things that went against us. Another batted pass by Barnes. I think that was the second one at this point. For a pass in the flat, he saw it big time and got a paw up there to sort the ball dead in its tracks. Mayfield with a 12-yard pass to Tez Walker on 3rd and 14 on 4th, into a run by White up the middle for 4 to move the chains. and then a screen pass to Tez Walker for the touchdown. Now, it was actually a struggle for Baker to get this one out because he was getting closed in on, kind of sidearmed it a little bit to get around. Nice throw in the end, really well blocked. Not great defense on our part, maybe one of the only reps where you could say that, but it was really well done by Tampa Bay. That makes the score 14-9. They try and go for 2 to make it a 3-point game. Excellent coverage all around. He settles for a throw over the middle, broken up by Nick Whiteside, who basically punched the ball out of the air. Really impressive by Nick, who might be the MVP of the game, I think, for what he did. So that made the score still 14-9, 5-point lead for the Lions. And they hit right back. It was one of these things. The offense really, spluttered, had the touchdown early, managed to get the big chunk play by Gibbs. But when Tampa Bay came back with a score, the Lions hit straight back. 3rd and 2 play action pass to Brock Wright, leaking out for the first down. Interesting play design here. Ash actually called it live. Brock Wright lines up on the left-hand side as a tight end. He comes in motion from left to the right-hand side and then leaks out after the play is snapped behind the line to leak out on the left-hand side, not unlike the Jets touchdown from a couple of years ago. That was in front of the formation, this was behind, but all about the tight end just kind of trying to go unnoticed. That was really big play on 3rd down, because if things stalled out there, suddenly they're driving for the lead. Gibbs with a toss pass for 15 yards, another flat pass to Gibbs on a screen, Saul out in front, only has to block little Antoine Winfield, but he just kind of avoids him. And Antoine Winfield then makes a touchdown-saving tackle at the 5-yard line. That was a 28-yard gain. Their respite was only one play, though. Hand it back off to Gibbs, and a lovely spin move in the middle to beat Zion McCollum for the touchdown. PAT we go for, not a 2-point conversion, which was good. And the Lions lead by 12, 21-9. Baker had a deep throw to Ibuka on 3rd and 3, but again, massively overthrown, leads to a punt deep in their own territory. Goff then just able to throw it away out of pressure from Simmons. He had that Goff spin, which everyone hates, but this time didn't result in a sack. Monty ran for 2 on 3rd and 8, a throw to Sam Laporta for 9. Later on in this drive, a 4th and 1 by Amon-Ra St. Brown had a handoff to Amon-Ra on a sort of jet sweep with an option pitch to Gibbs. He wasn't going to get there, but on a second effort, Amon-Ra got behind him and pushed him forward for the first down just. They never showed a picture of the spot. I'd be very interested to see where he went out of bounds, because I don't think they got there, but they gave it to us, and that is one where I think they definitely did throw us a bone, fortunately. Surprise, no challenge. In the ensuing set after that, we had a 3rd and 6 where Goff threw out of pressure and missed the completion, and it ended up, even though we got that 4th down, we still had to end up punting away afterwards. So only 12 points down still at this juncture. Tampa Bay. Baker with a nice throw to Otten for 20, but then can't get anything going. On 3rd and 4, an illegal shift with a missed pass to Ibuka. We declined that penalty. 4th and 4, a throw to Cade Otten. Tackle by Alex Anzalone. Ruled a fumble and advanced, so given a first down to Tampa Bay. We challenge, but then actually replay assist says it's not a fumble. So then they're looking at the spot. They eventually, after a second review, but it wasn't a second review, it was an extended first review disrupted by technical problems, apparently. They do say that the spot was short, and because all of this was effectively instigated by themselves internally, they give us our challenge back. We'll talk more about that in a minute, because it's one of the more contentious parts of the game. I do think the photos are very, very clear, knees down, and the hand is on the line to gain with the ball behind the hand, so it's very clearly short. So they got there in the end. Detroit then take over, but again, after a turnover, can do very little. 3rd and 10, straight afterwards, Goff missing JMO over the middle. Bates from 58 comes back after the miss from 54 and gets a doink, which comes down pretty much flat, but because of how the posts are, it was good. If it was rugby posts, it wouldn't have been good, but because it's American football posts, it was. So 3 points after that turnover, but basically getting no offense after that turnover, much like any of the turnovers the Lions got in this game. Very, very little off turnovers. But that makes it 24-9. The last points of the entire game, even still with quite a long time left in this. Tampa Bay, with their next drive down 15, really need to put together a touchdown scoring drive, preferably 8. And they have a huge drive here, doesn't end up going well, and then another huge drive later as well. They dink and dunk down the field. Baker missed Tez high again. Big hold on Hutch by Barton declined. The Lions chose to have 3rd and 10 over 2nd and 20. A high throw caught by Tez Walker for a 13-yard gain means that they get a first down, but then Baker strip sacked by Tyrus Wheat and Al-Qadim Mohammed. Worth recovers it. Lions have multiple go at recovering that ball. Lions challenge the spot unsuccessfully here. Bit of an odd one. I think a lot of Lions fans are still scratching their heads over that one. We have a theory on it, a working theory potentially. Hutch gives Baker such pressure to force an incompletion. 4th and 5, great throw to Cade on. Baker then floats one to Tez in the end zone for an easy touchdown, but he missed him again too far out front. Chemistry is just not on. Amazing trigger and tackle by Hallett on Shepherd in open space on a 3rd down to force a 4th down. 4th and 5 again. Baker throws to Shepherd. DPI on Moller anyway. That caused another first down. So 4th and 5, 2 straight conversions on 4th down. Hutch pushes Heck back into Baker, but he refuses to go down, keeps his feet, and gets a 2-yard pass. A throw to Ibuka in the end zone. Should have had it, but hit by Whiteside, swiped by Whiteside again. It's one of those where if Baker puts it where Whiteside can't get it, it's a touchdown, and Baker's a good enough quarterback to do it. He just didn't. And then it's ensuing 4th and 8. They can't do a 3rd, 4th down in a row. Incomplete for Ibuka, another pass defended by Whiteside, so that's his 3rd one of the game at that point. Turnover on downs. It was an 18-play drive, which lasted 5 minutes and 54 seconds, and they came away with nothing. Lions went 3 and out, but killed all of the timeouts for Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay come back again. Baker under pressure, throws across his body to Ibuka for 30, but then sacked by Wheat. I say sacked. Clearly tripped. Missed call by the refs. Who cares? The game is dead anyway. 3rd and 21, pass out of a quarterback hit by DJ Reader, who leveled Mayfield. And then 4th and 21, complete to Miller for 15 yards, but he's short. Turnover on downs. Detroit go 3 and out and punt, and Tampa Bay kneel to end the game. So it's one of those where, Lions didn't go really conservative at the end of the game, but they just had nothing open, so they had to dink and dunk it. Killed a lot of clock, and then ended up coming with no points. And a fantastic game all in all for the Lions. I went through the whole second half there. I saw lots to talk about. It's such a weird game. 14-3 at the half, only 16 points in the second half. 2 of the highest scoring offenses in the league coming into the game, account for only 33 points in total. What a weird game, but in some ways refreshing and different to what we've seen from the Lions the last 3 years, to be honest.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that you mentioned in the second challenge, right as Dan's discussing it in this press conference, why my hand was going. I know we have our working theory. It just completely turns out that Dan was, in his own words, was grasping at straws. He thought that Mayfield would have been down before he fumbled, much like the K-Dotton one, and it would have saved us a couple of yards. And he said, if you were like, what the hell is he doing? You'd be correct. So he was just like, I think it. I know we obviously, so people might know the working theory we had is it also gave the defense a bit of a timeout because, as we say on this, on that one, we'd already given up a couple of big plays. It was just giving the kind of defense time to reset, get a bit of air. Nope, Dan was just like, nah, I'd have no idea here. I might as well just do it. And it kind of worked. At least our working theory kind of worked. But yeah, he was just grasping at it. Though he did also confirm that with the one before that had the second review, he was challenging the process of the catch, not the spot. So it was slightly misrepresented by sort of broadcast. It was him contesting the process of the catch, which was the thing we were calling on. And yeah, it turned out because of the AWS outage yesterday, they couldn't get to the broadcast angle. They said, oh, you lost the challenge. Then they could. So then the ref had to go to the monitor to have a look, and it caused all this. But yeah, that was the first one was good. Second one, yeah, just him chucking it for just trying, grasping at straws, as he says. But we did enough in that second half. I know, obviously, they scored the touchdown. Just a really good play for them. Blocks up the screen really well. Worst defensive play we probably had all game yesterday. But offense didn't really do too much other than, the field goal that doinked in and the touchdown that we had. But the defense in that second half, I know obviously technically gave up 6 points 2 times more than in the first half. They were lights out, especially since by that point, Rock was out. She had Whiteside in, someone who, we cut off in cut downs, some to the practice squad, all this. He came in, defensive MVP yesterday. Marlette was out for a bit, so then we were down to Lon Strickland, who we just called up off the practice squad, him starting, strong safety, Hallett in the slot, someone who this time last year was a strong safety that did special teams. That defense just shut it down in the second half. Even when they were giving up the big plays, it was very much a bend and don't break defense, and it worked.
Yeah, it was an incredible game to watch just because every time you thought that Tampa Bay were going to come back into it, they just kind of flattered the sieve. And part of it is massively to our credit, and part of it is very much, like I said earlier, on Baker Mayfield not getting it done. The no-name players that we have that are, the Legion of Whom, for which the Whom is named for, it's amazing. And I just want to bring up something that our own Stephen Collins in the chat has kind of brought up here. He said, biggest difference between an Aaron Glenn defense and Kelvin Shepherd defense is whenever Aaron Glenn had to bring in practice squad or UDFA players, they always looked out of their depth and got picked on by opponents. With Kelvin, players come in and make an impact and look like they belong. Maybe wasn't the case last week against Kansas City, but very much was the case now. And you know what? Players have been filling in low-key most of the season with us suffering with injuries early in the season again. And, people really are showing out. I mean, Amik is no practice squad player, but he's not a starter in this team in base formation with everyone healthy. And yet he's one of the best players on this team right now.
Yeah, exactly. That sums it up because this time last year it was getting to that point. Obviously, it was around now that a Hutch injury happened, Alima was later, but the linebacker injuries were having, so by now I think Barnes was just getting injured, Malcolm was about to get injured, and Solini was going to be out for a bit. Yeah, we were pulling Ezekiel Turner, Kwal Alexander, Jamal Adams at linebacker, and yet they were just getting picked apart. No case more than that than the Bills game where it was just Ty Johnson over the middle for pretty much every play, getting massive yards. Yeah, this week they came in and maybe it's Shep actually doing a defense that puts his players in a better position and all that, but yet they did not look out their depth at all, even when Strickland had to come onto the field and was taking starter level snaps. Marlette, who we signed off the practice squad going into the game, signed the week before, him coming in from playing 40 snaps and him looking pretty damn good. Dare I say, and I know it's someone that it's not a secondary player, but Tyrus Wheat, someone we picked up after cut downs, and people are like, even me, I even said it on the stream. He's just here for special teams. He's just a body. His part, as soon as he's like 4 weeks on the roster that we have to do because we started to practice squad is up, he's probably gone. Even said it was like, oh yeah, if Davenport can come back, which is not looking likely now after the bye, but he could reach probably the guy that goes. The fact he comes out and has a forced fumble and 1.5 sacks by himself, someone who very much I'm not one of these. Because some of the people that got very much slated on the Detroit Lions podcast after the show, the press report was like, oh yeah, all these people, I don't know who they are on this. I knew who Torrance Wheat was. I'd seen a bit of him. And even I was like, yeah, this guy's just a bottom of the roster guy for special teams. And he came out and made some plays. Like Al-Qadim Mohammed, someone that I know, again, we knew about because he was signed this time last year. He was on the couch and the fact he's still got more sacks than Micah Parsons. I know Parsons just passed him with pressures this week, but someone who very unheralded outside, I think he stepped up and made plays. This is what we wanted. And yet, as much as I liked Aaron Glenn and my take of him being a better head coach and defensive coordinator looks really bad right now because, winless. Shep, please, can outside people just not notice him? Because I know certain DCs are getting looks, Chris Schuler for the Rams, for instance, and all that. Can we keep Shep a bit longer, please? I'd like to keep him.
He's talked a good game about wanting to stay here for the long haul. He's going to get tested if he's successful. Let's see how serious he really is about being here long term. He's got potentially a very long career as a coach ahead of him, so I don't think he's going to feel like he's in any rush to make the big jump. We'll see. I think he's got a lot to learn from Dan, to be honest, still. And, he's got to learn the other side of the ball first. So,
true.
Give it time. Let's talk game themes then. Offensive struggles. As I mentioned, it was a struggle game. Goff looked off it, most of it. And this really shows up in the sort of success rate that the Lions had in this game. EPA per play, 32nd percentile, almost losing 1/10 of a point per play. Success percentage, 36.8. That's 17th percentile. So very, very low. Not just for the Lions, but generally a very, very bad success rate. But when it comes to explosives, 10.3% explosive pay rate, 57th percentile. And, those two things, when there's such disparity between success rate and explosive rate, really shows up here when you have Gibbs going for multiple 25-yard plus plays, including the 78-yarder. It felt like it was a lot of fits and spurts. There's that point in the game where we have turnover on downs, or we have Goff with a strip sack, or we just kind of, after forcing them to punt, we go for a punt as well. It was just, Tampa Bay really brought it on defense. That's going to be lost in this game.
Yeah, definitely. So in the background while we're talking, I did do the maths, and even with Gibbs, who's getting outed as like the offensive MVP and all this, to do the Jeremy Reisman thing and take away the biggest rush. With that, if you take away obviously the 78-yarder, he's then left with 58 yards and 16 carries. That's 3.6 yards a carry, which for Gibbs standards, where he's seen as this big explosive runner, that's not good. Monty, I know. Again, I even said it in the thing, you've just got to take with the rough with the smooth with this, where he'll eventually break one. 1.6 yards a carry. It just wasn't there at all offensively. And maybe, again, that might just be a symptom of playing the Buccaneers defense, which is very blitz happy. And you could see with whenever the ball was snapped, especially on these runs, the linebackers are just crashing in. I would love to say that, but it's been a symptom for the past couple of weeks. We had the massive explosion against the Bears, and ever since, there's kind of been just something missing, and maybe part of that is the JMO connection, because again, he wasn't really there. He got targeted twice, didn't have a catch. There was other instances where he was open over the middle and Goff didn't go towards him. Maybe it's that, but it's also, as Michael Gray on the DLP post-game show pointed out, the screen success rate just isn't there. This week it was, like, there was a lot better throws. So the Monty one in the first half, the Gibbs one. But there was a load of these screens, especially admittedly in that sort of second to last drive, where it was mostly about just draining their timeouts. But the screen to Amon Ra, where he got blew up for a 1 yard loss, it hasn't fully been there. And luckily the defense this week was there to carry us. But if we're going to, I don't want to look too far ahead, and because of course it is, you want to play your best football in December and January. But if this is going to be a trend for this season where the offense success rate is just not going to be there this year, we'll get to the playoffs for sure. But then, will we get final playoffs? I don't know. There's something that's got, I know obviously Dan's come out and said he's going to give the coach and players time off over the bye, but they need to look at the offense and just see if there's something we're doing that's key. And defense is into what we're doing, but the offense just wasn't there this week. And the bad thing is, as much as we like to say, oh yeah, Goff has the measure of the Vikings scheme usually, it's pretty similar to the Bucs in terms of the way they blitz and that. And if this is what Goff looked like against such a scheme, I know we've got the week off now, and we've got a bit of time to work out, but that Vikings game does become a bit more scary, at least our offense versus their defense, because it might not be the 30-point explosions we've had the past couple of times. It might be another game like this where we get a couple of explosives and then we score on them, but the rest of the drives, it's having to go to field goals, punting from halfway. That might not do it in the divisional game because they'll be up for it.
It's weird because we've been watching the Detroit Tigers season end by being this sort of explosive hitting team that goes for home runs but has an awful strikeout rate and has a really low on-base percentage. Not dissimilar in this game to the low success rate with some explosive plays. And, it'll work in regular season times where you don't have to worry if you drop a game here or there. But I think you're right. If this carries into the playoffs, it's going to be a big worry. On the other hand, the thing that's plagued the Lions for so long is that they haven't had a defense where you can say defense wins championships. That defense, if it plays like that, can absolutely win championships. So, while the offense is becoming a concern potentially, at least in this game, on the other side of it, the defense is so heroic that it's like, okay, show us that again. And, if they can be that explosive on both sides of the ball, wow, we're not getting beat. If we can put it all together, we are not getting beat.
Exactly. And the good news is, as I said yesterday, we're doing that with, as obviously the Legion of Whom on the back end. We're not fully healthy on the front end either. Like Davenport's an IR, and I know certain members of the panel do not like Davenport at all. But you got to admit, even having him back and having to be able to rotate him with Al Qadim will be nice. Malcolm, I know obviously he'll probably be the fourth linebacker. He'll probably take the sort of Zach Cunningham role and all this. But having him on, suddenly there's a fourth linebacker you can trust. We can do some weird linebacker looks where, yeah, we might have Barnes down as a hand in the dirt edge rusher and still have three linebackers behind him in terms of the ABs, Anzalone Barnes, Anzalone Campbell, and then Rodrigo. The secondary is obviously going to get healthier with all these guys coming back. We can be a lot better on defense because this is still, I know obviously Dan said in the press conference just they weren't expected to get Aleem that many snaps, but he's eventually going to become a starter. He's going to get more snaps. Hassanin, I know obviously it's based on preseason play, but having him in the fold and his ability is like a sort of explosive, like you put him down on a third down, just go, right, there's this offensive tackle, get round him. Even if it's just a sort of that way, forces it into Hutch, into Aleem. This defense is looking great already, and yet it still can get better. That should be scary for teams because, we're now one of the best defenses by DVOA when we're injured. It's like where we were last year with all the healthy bits, we were a top defense. The fact it's the other way around now where we're getting healthier and we're already at the top. Like, God, it's going to be fun because we're going to need this defense in the playoffs. So we're not coming up against Rams offense as we get into in a bit. That's going to London with like one day there and then puts up the most touchdowns ever in a Wembley game. We're going up against who else? Bucks again, because they'll work it out. They'll have Ibuka back healthy, probably. They'll have Godwin back. Might get a couple more pieces in. They won't have Evans, obviously, but Bucky Irvin will be back. Might see them again, God help us, and we might need the defense there. I like it. As a sicko who loves defense, the fact we can get better, I like it. And then the offense will get better. We can trust that. Dan will have some up his sleeve to help it.
Yeah, we've obviously waxed lyrical about the defense. Just a couple of stats for you guys. A pass rush win rate of over 60% in this game. In terms of pressures, Aiden Hutchinson had 12. DJ Reader had 4, Ali McNeil with 5, Al-Qadim Mohammed with 9, Tyrus Wheat on 4 snaps had 2, Jack Campbell had 2. A really impressive performance up front. We talk about the DBs, but Baker was given a clean pocket where he wasn't pressured, actually, and he missed out big time on those throws. But, he was under pressure a huge amount of the time, and a massive credit to basically everyone up front who did themselves massive credit. And I think a lot of that starts with Ali McNeil just allowing a bit more rotation in that interior. He obviously got a lot of push up front and does a huge amount of credit. But this is maybe DJ Reader's best game as a Lion, low-key, even though he only had 19 snaps. I thought he was a game-changing piece when he was on the field.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, again, it's going back to William yet again, but that's the impact he has where suddenly we can rotate DJ Reader because, he's playing a lot of snaps. And the fact now we can be more selective with him. And we can be more selective with Tyleek as well. The other guy who kind of lost snaps, he only played 21 snaps, but this is second time in 3 weeks that he's had a grade above 60. Like something that PFF picked out because they kind of hated him early in the season. But the fact that now we can pick and choose and use him and rotate him and we're not sort of putting a whole workload on him, is going to get a lot better help. Even Roy Lopez, like the sort of forgotten guy sort of in the defensive tackle room, the true tackle room, shall we say, because obviously kind of exists in that. But 11 snaps and he's looking good. He had good run defense grade. The pass rush grade dropped off a bit, but he still managed to do stuff in the game. Then it's good because it can only get better with Aleem coming in and we can start working these things out, which I know Shep will probably cock up some things. And dare I say, Casey Rogers, the guy who made the defense, the Tampa defensive front what it has been. We just can see in that he's obviously out for them, but it's going to get a lot better for DJ Reed, and suddenly he doesn't have to worry so much about, is this my last season? I'm going to get torn into the ground. He should be healthy come January, February. So if we come up against the Kyron Williams, a Bucky Irvin, a Saquon Barkley, he's still fit and firing. He won't be 100%. No one's 100% in the playoffs, but he'll be healthy enough that you can stick him out there for 25, 30 snaps if you need to, just to shut down the run game. And he'll be able to do it. Unlike last year, where he was kind of bad and bruised, and you could see the play was falling off, and that's why Jaden Daniels was able to do what he did to us last season. I like it.
Just finally, what do you make of the stuff after turnovers, the play calling on offense? Because it was a criticism early in the season. They kind of sorted it out for one game, and we're back to where we were again. What's going wrong?
I honestly don't know. It's something I'm going to be looking at, because everyone knows one of my big bugbears is the sort of points off turnovers thing. Because it was an issue in the Bears game. We've kind of sorted it out in the Browns game, being now it's fallen back down to earth. I don't know if it's the sort of like what we're saying with the Goff turnover, where the defense is coming, the opposite defense is coming on, like, we need to help our offense here, and they're just playing, with that 5% extra. But there's something there, and part of it can maybe be excused with some of the stuff, especially in the second half with the sort of the fumble and that, and suddenly we were almost trying to, just waste time by that point. But the one early in the game, we should be punishing them. I don't know if it's more to not having the feel for how to handle those situations. It's something he's going to have to grow into, but he's going to have to do it quickly, because come that day to down the next couple of weeks, where we've got Minnesota, but we're also playing Philadelphia, the Commanders. We've got all these teams coming up who, if we don't capitalize on these, they do have the potential to hurt us with their offenses. If we do go 3 and out, have to pump back to them. They're like, oh, thanks for this let off. We're now going to go score on you. We do need to sort it out. That is one of my other big bears, other than the obvious coverage busts on special teams, which I definitely need to go back onto, because that was the only time yesterday on my comedy counter I had to write about coverage bust, and it was on a kick return. It's just little stuff like that where maybe it's just execution. We're being a bit lax, but that's what we've got to look at too. And the JMO connection, I know we referenced it earlier, but they need to get them on the same page, because teams can just squat on the intermediate and short routes if JMO's not keeping them on a steep. We need to get the connection sorted, because people are spotting it. People are saying, there's, and even fans of our own who, I don't want to just call them box score like watchers, but the fact we signed JMO to this massive extension, and so far the production in terms of catches, receiving yards, touchdowns hasn't been there. Like, his work off the ball, cannot fault to it at all. But there are people out there that are like, why the hell did the Lions pay this receiver and they're not using him?
It's one of those things. We've always talked about the fact that we want, or like the X position is kind of devalued for us, because we've got him and we've got Amon-Ra, we've got Sam Laporta. But he has kind of turned into that X player in terms of the fact that he is the guy that's so reliable with his blocking, and he can spring people free, that he's got the skill set that people want from that X receiver in terms of that. And he's got the speed to take the top off. I'm not worried. I think the teams still have to respect his speed over the top. I don't think they're going to not be guarding him at any point. I think he's going to be one of those guys who is contributing every single game he's playing, whether he's receiving the ball or not. I still think his route running looks so much better than it used to. I think his catching still looks good. I don't think the chemistry is massively off. I just think he's a victim of how many good pass catches we have, and I do think Goff has just been throwing the ball badly, full stop, for everybody recently. So I think it's a Goff problem more than a JMO problem. And also, when it clicks, JMO will go for 600 yards in a month, and people will kind of go, where did this come from? And it's just regression to the mean. It will come. I really believe it.
Hell, we were even saying yesterday the stuff with the Amon-Ra, where you've got him and JMO stats, was like, oh, come on, there's got to be one play in the second half where we do this, and Goff actually throws it to JMO. It's going to be a massive touchdown. Which never happened. And maybe that's because it's designed. They just want JMO to be that clear out guy. But it'd be nice. Even if it is just Goff needs to just, I know obviously again we said that the hand time off, he just goes to the practice facility with JMO and all the receivers and just spends the day just throw into them as much as he can, because obviously don't want to wear out his arm, and that's a picture in baseball. But just little stuff like that, and I know Goff will do it because he does it in the off season, doesn't it? There's always the pictures of him on Instagram where he's gone to California with Amon-Ra and all that. That's all it needs probably, is just a day where they just work on it.
Yeah. On the turnover bit, I think this is a Morton problem. I think it's one of the only things that I do think is a really big Morton problem. I think otherwise, you have a look at how many touchdowns we have this year, success rate, all of that sort of stuff. I don't think it's really been a big fall off. But when it comes to when we've received the ball following a turnover, I think that Mawson's natural inclination is that of consolidation rather than putting
Yeah.
your foot on their throat. And it's not something I necessarily see from our offense generally. I know that Ant has continually argued against this sort of run pass rubbish, and I do think that's a legitimate concern. But he seems to be very willing to kind of just risk going 3-and-out after those plays because he thinks the run is the strongest part of his team, which it may be, even if it's not being very successful. After the turnover, he turned to Montgomery, despite the fact that he's not got a very good rushing success rate at all. I think he was probably the lowest in the league this game, or something like that. It was really, really bad. Or there were just some kind of funky plays that didn't really work. I mean, one of them we had to get the first down after a sneak from Goff, which was marginal at best. It was uninspired to the point of, just one of the things I hated about Green Bay when Rodgers was the quarterback was when you turn the ball over, the very next play was often chuck it into the end zone because, man, they're going to feel it if we do that and pull it off. And they often did. It was just, let's score this one play. And I know that we like to keep ourselves in front of the chains, but sometimes you gotta put the dagger in the heart, and we never really seem like we're going to put teams at risk of doing that because it's almost death by 1,000 cuts, and we leave points on the field because of it.
Exactly. Yes, I'm just quickly putting it up again. This is where I get a lot of my stats is the Tej Seth thing that was put in our Discord. But when both running backs, Montgomery 15.4% rushing success rate, which is 11 percentile, Gibbs 35.3. Yeah, it just did feel like it, and I honestly, I think it is just he does go for consolidation, and maybe it's just something again where Dan needs to just give him a whack around the head and be like, okay, we need to change this, and he does not fully take over the reins and more in those situations, but is a bit more active on the headset, like he initially was with Ben. Like it was obviously the infamous thing that early in the thing, Ben would probably call the first, second, and third down plays, but when it comes to the fourth down plays, and these kind of ones, Dan would do it. And then by the time it got to last season, they were the same mind where Dan knew we could just leave it alone. It might just be that Dan needs to jump on the headset a bit more and be like, okay, no, we're doing this. But I agree. Maybe Morton is just a bit too conservative on those, or I know I argued for it being okay, it's just us wasting the timeouts, but those last couple of drives in this game where it was 3-and-out, killed all the times, but then 3-and-out again, we don't go for that sucker punch when we should, especially in these kind of situations where the Bucks are a good team and an extra 7 points might be the difference in terms of points per game between us if it does come down to it, in terms of, let's say, the Packers somehow win the division because that's fucking tie, which is still gone. That currently the first seed in the NFC. But let's say it is the wild card and it does come down to points per game. That extra touchdown might be the difference in points per game between us being the fifth seed and the sixth, and suddenly we have a harder game when we go out. We do need to go for the sucker punch, especially since we've got Jamo, we've got Kelly, we've got Amara, we've got Samler, we've got Gibbs and that. We've got the weapons to go for it. Yeah. Even if it is just the first down, you go for the shot and then you go conservative the rest because it doesn't work. At least you've gone for it a bit more. You've gone and tried to force the issue.
Right. Stock up, stock down. Who do you want to shout
out? It's so easy. It's so easy to go for so many, especially in the defense, but it's got to be Whiteside, hasn't it? I know you wanted to name the show after him, but we did it earlier in pre-season, so we couldn't do the Mr. Brightside parody again. But him coming in, having 3 PBUs in key times, the 2-point conversion, and then the 2 ones in the end zone. For someone who wasn't even a starter, he had to come in because Yasin got his cramps and that. He showed why he stuck around, and I know it's come out since that he's always one of the first people to build, and that when he's on the practice squad, he's always working at it. And he's playing with his best friend. It turns out him and Nobaski were really close, and they're doing this. He's arguing to stick around. He is. I don't want to disparage this guy because obviously he was beloved on the podcast, and I hope he does get a job somewhere soon. But he's the story of Jerry Jacobs, but arguably actually plays better.
Oh, yeah. No slight to Jerry, because I love him and I love his
Yeah.
story, but Whiteside, I mean, we haven't seen enough of him. I will say that Jerry had a sample size and Nick does not, but I don't think Jerry ever had a high as this in his career. So yeah, fantastic. I will shout out Jack Campbell. What a way to rebound after last week's debacle. He is PFF's number one rated linebacker on run defense. He's in the top 10 in terms of total defense grade. He was all over the field, snuffed out third down screens, super aggressive, where he's meeting running backs in the open field. He's not letting them fall forwards. It's little things like that, little pieces of technique, and the way he reads the game. And I know he looks awful slow for a really fast guy. He's very instinctual and very quick. It's just, doesn't necessarily look it. Great tackler, great leader of the team. I think everything going well right now in terms of the UDFA's, UFL players around him kind of stems from him initially. So long may that continue.
Yeah, 100%. Like, if we even point out to say that play the third down when we snuff out the screen instantly, that's what was missing last week. And you could tell because it suddenly went from last week where we were giving up these big plays on third down to, suddenly 3 and outs. This is his defense once again. Thank God.
Anyone else you want to shout out? One more each?
It's an easy one in the offense, but Penne. So he's making a name for himself. I know obviously the Protector of the Year award comes from pass blocking, but you look at, especially since week 3 against Baltimore, the run blocking grades are elite. I don't know if this is kind of stretched out to other games, but this is a 93.5, which is elite. That's very unheard of things. And somehow that's his second best run blocking grade of the season. And then over the past 5 or so weeks, all of his grades, except for last week against Kansas City, are above 86. Like, he is a monster in the run game, and the pass blocking, while it's not perfect, it's doing enough to keep Goff upright as he can and keep things off him. Only one Courier given up this week. 98.5 pass blocking efficiency on a true pass sets are the ones that aren't all these blitzes and that. No pressure's given up. What more could we ask for from our franchise right tackle, who is the best offensive tackle in the league? I don't care about Lane Johnson. He can shut up.
He is, without any snap qualifiers at all, PFF's number one graded offensive lineman. The only other person in the 90s is Tevin Jenkins, and he has 21 snaps.
Yeah.
No one else is in the 90s. No one else has 89. Next is Quentin Nelson, guard. Creed Humphrey, center. Colton Miller is the next one for Vegas, 86.5. All of these guys who want to take that crown are being left in the rearview mirror by Penei Sewell, who's having not just a good season or a consistent year. He is having one of the best seasons that a tackle has had ever right now.
Yeah.
He's up there. All right, I got one more guy. I'm not going to put it on the offense. I'm still coming back to the defense. It would be easy to give it to Lee McNeil, wouldn't it? Because he made such a difference. But I'm not going to do that because I want to give it to another unheralded guy. I'm going to go for Thomas Harper.
Yes.
Yeah, just one of those guys who's kind of come in with very little experience. Not much was expected of him. Didn't look out of place. I think he had one PBU, which really stuck out actually in the memory. Otherwise, tackling was good. Coverage was pretty nice. I remember there was one rep where he didn't quite recover as quickly as he'd like, and it left the corner on a bit of an island. But accepting that, I thought given that, both safeties suddenly out from last week to this, I think he acquitted himself very, very well.
Yeah, 100%. And the mad thing is that's his first time playing more than 35 snaps. The only other time he's got close to that was last year at Kansas City where he played 34 and he didn't have a good game. He had a really good game, and I know obviously I love Kirby to death, but I've been calling for someone that can back up Kirby in these situations where, he has an injury, someone could put someone in. We found it in Thomas Harper, and that's again someone we picked up on cut downs, and everyone's like, why didn't we keep Kennelly? Why didn't we keep Strickland? This is why we've managed to groom, in a good way, obviously, groom a backup for Kirby, who can also do special teams, can do a bit of the branch stuff as well. He has taken snaps at slot corner, strong safety in Vegas. But yeah, when we needed him, I know part of the reason we didn't give up many deep shots was because Baker was overthrowing all of them or underthrowing them. There weren't many deep balls, and that's what this Bucks defense offense has been predicated on this year. Is Baker's there, gets the short stuff, gets short stuff, coverage, bust right, throwing it up deep to Mike Evans, to Booker, to Godwin, to whoever. Wasn't really there this week, so much applause to Thomas Harper.
All right, let's move on to the rest of the week's slate in brief, because we've been going for some time already. Starting with Thursday night football, hilariously, the Steelers, massive favourites away against the Bengals, end up losing. Joe Flacco rolls back the years in the battle of 40-year-old quarterbacks with an exceptional game. Chase Brown has his first good game of the season. Jamar Chase has a career day. Rodgers wasn't bad by any means. Neither was Jalen Warren, who went over 100 yards on the ground. First time he's had a really big game this year. Frymouth went over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns for Pittsburgh, but they couldn't overcome 2 picks by Rodgers. Bengals fully deserved it, and, Flacco got traded for a fair amount given his age, and he's repaid it in one game.
Yeah, I would like to rewind a couple of weeks ago to when they made that trade, and a certain someone said, I really like this fit. It's going to unlock Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. And oh, wait, they combined for nearly 22 receptions of the 31 made by Cincinnati, over 200 yards and 2 of the 3 touchdowns. I know Jamar Chase got peppered in this game, 23 targets for 16 catches, but this is what they needed. They had these weapons where they could stretch teams vertically, as we saw in that fourth quarter against us. Finally, to have a QB that can lock that, that's not Joe Burrow. And it helped the run game. Suddenly, Chase Brown suddenly had room to run, because the Steelers are suddenly like, well, number one, we need to pass with Flacco so he doesn't get the time to hit them, but we also need to leave guys back so we don't give up the big shots to these. And suddenly unlocked the run game. And the defense wasn't perfect, but it got the turnovers when it needed to. And it showed enough. And no shame to the Steelers. They looked pretty good as well. I know, obviously, one of my favorite guys, kind of Haywood, didn't really do too well, but Frymouth suddenly been unlocked, and he's been kind of stuck there. Johnny Smith did enough when he was called upon. Metcalf was okay. Vaughn was good. It's just the Bengals came to play in the divisional matchup, and it showed. And it's a nice little sort of flex for Flacco as well, for his comments that Tomlin had after they made the trade. Like, I would never trade in division like that. Flacco showed why you do.
All right, next up, London game, 35-7. Stafford 5 touchdowns. Trevor nowhere to be seen. Lots of drops in this game. Pretty awful game again in England.
Yeah, T-Law was not helped at all by the play calling. Yeah. And the mess takeaway for the Jags here is you need to actually just use Travis Hunter as a deep threat, because when they do, he's great, which is never there. But Stafford, fair play to the guy. 5 touchdown passes, the most that's ever been seen in a London game. Came and did what he needed to do after, we kind of ravaged them and said they're not going to win because they were going on Saturday night. They showed why that worked, and hopefully teams take it, because I hate having the Jags over here. I know the reason they're here. Just fuck them off and get a proper team over here for once.
Next up, Bears are now 4 straight, beating the Saints 26-14. Defensive affair, I don't think necessarily that Caleb looked fantastic. Had a couple of good passes in there. Rattler looked okay, but he had plenty of picks. DeAndre Swift puts together another big game. But otherwise, offensively, a bit...
Yeah. It was more the Saints beat themselves than the Bears beat them. And you're welcome, I guess, Bears, for keeping you alive in the playoff race. And we've got the same record on that. But yeah, it's the Saints, and they're going to get ravaged. No, everyone wants us to trade for Cam Jordan. Chris Olave is probably going to be wearing different colours in a couple of weeks' time, and hopefully he takes the Guardian chin strap with him, because, God, he needs it with some of the hospital balls he gets thrown.
Yeah. Next up, Browns win 31-6 over the Dolphins. Tua with a terrible day. Browns getting their second win of the season, ruining their draft stock. But man, it's such a fun team to watch on that side of the ball on the defense. And the reason why I'm not just glossing over this game at all is that the Miami Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel suggests that Tua might not be the starter going forward, which is going to be interesting, especially since their rookie 7th rounder was their QB2 for this game. Are we going to see him getting a start? Will Ant be proved right?
I think he will. And we kind of did predict it with all the weather stuff. We were like, well, the Browns got the better defense, a better run game. They're probably going to win this, and boy, did they. But yeah, I think this game kind of showed in a way that, yeah, the two is the problem. Two is the problem here. Ewers might give them a bit more thing. It's just funny to me that obviously they got Zach Wilson and they demoted him, and now, yes, suddenly it's the Quinn Ewers show, and I'm interested to see it happens. I know I wasn't the biggest fan of him in the draft, but it actually gives me a reason to maybe watch the Dolphins this weekend, since I don't have Lions football to watch. Very interesting to see what happens. Oh, what's been said in the chat?
Yeah.
I don't have the chat open. I don't know.
No, just someone saying Looney Tunes terrible. Anyway, Patriots Titans 31-13. The only reason I mention this game, apart from the hot start by the Titans and people tweeting about it in the first quarter and coming to regret it, is just the high completion percentage by Drake May. Not even Tom Brady, after that many passes, has a higher completion percentage than Drake May does in a game for the New England Patriots.
Oh, I'm so happy. I am so happy. We all know how much I love Drake May, and yes, this is what I want. I want him to do well. Like, I know obviously there's a whole memes of it's so nice for the downtrodden franchise like the Patriots to turn it around after these 6 years of mediocrity. But I actually kind of am happy for them. Like, Drake May's going off there very well on his return to the team that discarded him for the guy that they just then fired. I'm very happy for this team. And yeah, it's funny, as you say, to sort of fall apart. Like, the Titans, they're actually better at this, and so they just implode. Like, poor Cam Ward, they need to get him some protection. And now he has one less weapon than he did in that game, because they're so bad that Tyler Lockett has requested his release from them.
Let that sink in. Next up, actually not quite next up, sorry. Patriots 4-0 away from home so far this season, another notable thing. Chiefs blank the Raiders 31-0. Chiefs are back, obviously, as everyone has said now, after beating us and then beating them. I'm not sure beating the Raiders can really be stamped as their we're back moment, but they beat the pants off them.
They did, and that's why when you were saying about Colton Miller, I was like, I know everyone's looking at like Max Crosby and other stuff with the Cowboys. I wonder how much it would take for a team to trade for Colton Miller.
More than a first.
True.
I think a 1 and a 3, maybe a 1 and a 2. He's that good, and it has been low key for some time.
Exactly. That, like, I know I did get. I can't remember when I said it, but it's like I actually kind of like the Raiders offense, like, because of Colton Miller. Like, they got Colton Miller, got a couple of young draft picks that I know we were fans of when they were coming out, like Jackson Johnson and that. They've got pieces there, but just Pete Carroll. The Raiders have done what the Carolina Panthers did a couple of years ago. Fired the culture guy to get ahead that has been coach, and they realised the league's found him out. Pete Carroll is Frank Reich 2.0.
Next up, Vikings lose to the Eagles 28-22 in Minneapolis. Jalen Hurts looked fantastic in this game. Only scored 28 points, but some really big throws that paid off. 19-23 for 326, 3 touchdowns, no picks. The problem they had was on the ground, because they went very balanced. 50% rush, 50% pass. Saquon Barkley, 18 carries for 44 yards. Like, that's rough. Like, they were not good on the ground and actually kind of hamstrung them a little bit. Carson Wentz had a meltdown, throwing 2 picks in almost back-to-back plays. It was really, really poor. But apart from that, it almost put their team in a position to win. And late on in this game, with the Vikings 9 down with about 4 minutes to play, Hockenson has a touchdown reversed on replay that may be a talking point for a long time about what is a catch. Hockenson has taken the mantle of Detroit having problems with what is a catch, and he's brought it to the Vikings.
Yeah, I tried to avoid that discussion because obviously, considering what happened to us in Travis County, very interesting. But all I will say is, thank you to the Eagles for remembering you having AJ Brown and Devontae Smith because you pretty much single-handedly gave me the win against a certain other person in fantasy this week. My only win this week, so thank you for that. And yeah,
I am
hopefully
0 and
his cast.
7, so congratulations on that win.
I'm 2 wins. Like I had Markle going for me in that get like in our league, which is funny. But I know obviously it's interesting because I know Carson Wentz is supposed to going to start for the Vikings on Thursday. Who are we going to face when we play him? Is it going to be JJ McCarthy, the savior for the Vikings franchise against us, or are they going to have to stick with Carson Wentz? And with Kirby back and see what he's done against the Vikings the past couple of times we faced them when they're starting their backup QB. Are we getting another Nick Mullins 2.0 situation?
Next up, Panthers beat the Jets 13-6. Good win for Carolina. Fields gets benched after only 12 passes. Tyrod Taylor comes in and throws 2 picks, and yet it still looks like Tyrod Taylor's going to be named the starter for next week. But that's not really the talking point from this game. It's that the Panthers have gone on a bit of a run here and are above 500 for the first time in a long time. But is there hope? I don't know. Bryce Young has his ankle injury, and it looks like he's going to be out for next week. Andy Dalton's going to be a starter. Good luck.
Yeah, it's not exactly great. Like, other than Ant, I'm probably one of the biggest Panthers fans around because I do really like Tet and I like some of their players, but it does hurt quite literally because, yeah, it's a scrappy win against the Jets team that just couldn't get out of their own way. But yeah, they won it, but what cost? Because, yeah, Bryce Young definitely be missing this week. And if it is a longer ankle sprain, can Dalton keep him afloat? Maybe, but he's not going to have the chemistry with Tet and that, so they're going to go down. They're going to have to rely on the running back rotation now because that's the good news for them this week is that with Hubbard kind of back, they've worked out how to rotate them. They might be able to get through next week with Dowdle and Hubbard, but beyond that, they're going to need something else.
Next up is the Colts win away against the Chargers 38-24. Justin Herbert had to try and do it all by himself. Threw for 420 yards, including giving Aronde Gradston 164 of those yards and Keenan Allen 119, and yet they still lose by multiple scores. Daniel Jones, not a world beater in this game, I don't think, but efficient. 23 for 288 and 2 and no picks. But I think the story is just that Jonathan Taylor is back. I mean, he's all the way back after having a couple of down years, especially hampered by injury. 16 carries, 94 yards, 3 touchdowns, and then 3 of 3 for 38 in the pass game. People have slept on him for a few years, probably justifiably. We say that Gibbs might be running back one in the league, but I think Jonathan Taylor's got a really big argument that, at least in this season, he is the one at the moment.
Yeah, 100%. Like, as I mentioned on, I think the fact that the Colts are having offensive output that has been seen since like the peak of the Chiefs' offense a couple of years ago, it's just insane. And again, I look at that defense, and while again it's not exactly great, it does enough for them where they can get along things like Luan Rue, who is someone that I really do respect as a defensive coordinator, even though I can't pronounce his bloody name, does enough for them to keep him afloat in these games. And yeah, it's sad because Gadsden, who I know Ant really loves, kind of at Syracuse, that kind of move tight end that can do a bit of blocking. Basically, a poor man Sam Laporta has one of the best rookie tight end performances ever, and it goes completely under the radar because the Colts blow him away.
Yeah. Next up, Cowboys beating the Commanders 44-22. They blew them away. Dak Prescott is back, at least for now. 21 of 32, 64, 3 touchdowns, no picks. CeeDee Lamb is still him, 5 of 8 for 110 and a touchdown. For me, it's that Javonte Williams continues on his comeback trail. I don't think we've seen this Javonte Williams since he was in college, but it is hard to bring him down. 19 carries, 116 yards and a touchdown. What a season so far.
Yeah, it's amazing what happens to this Cowboys offense when they actually have a running back they can use. Like it showed, and Commanders, they had Daniels back, but I think this game truly exposed. And I know I hate to bring this guy up because I know he's a Packers fan and we kind of hate him in these parts, but that franchise guy said it perfectly, summing up the Commanders both last season and this season. Last season was just them rolling a bunch of D20s and just getting critical roles every time. Like, look at the game where we played them. Oh, we're coming into it with all these injuries. We shoot ourselves in the foot with the turnovers, and they managed to get as far as they did. This season, they're regressing to the mean, especially on defense, and they've just lost one of their best pass rushers now with his injury for the season, Dorrance Armstrong. And Daniels can't do it on his own, especially with some of the weapons they've got out. He just can't do it. He's having a sophomore slump, and the Cowboys took effect. And the mad thing is now, who would have expected this going into the season? Other than us and the aforementioned Colts, who just a second ago, the Cowboys have the best points per scoring offense in the league in points per game. Who would have guessed that?
Yeah. George Pickens has worked. Javonte Williams has worked. In some ways, the offseason, they had to throw a nat 20, and they kind of have. The defense is still not good. But, against the Commanders, if you have Jaden Daniels and Marcus Mariota throwing balls, and they both also lead the team in rushing, you've kind of won this game, and it showed.
Mm-hmm.
Javonte Williams, second in rushing yards in the NFL this season, 592 on 111 carries. Joint fourth in terms of number of carries, by the way. So he's getting fed, but at 5.3 yards a carry, he's doing particularly well with it. Next up is the Packers beating the Cardinals 27-23. And this Packers team just isn't good, is it? Jacoby Brissett goes out there and looks like some sort of prime starting quarterback, 25 of 36, 279 and 2 touchdowns. Trey McBride, 10 of 13 for 74 and 2. But the problem is, you just can't go to pieces at the end like they did. They were up 3 with 5.5, 6 minutes to go, and they have a turnover on downs at their own 48, trying to kill the game. And, that's what the Lions would have done. They would have gone for it, and they would have got it. Unfortunately, they didn't. Concede a touchdown, and then needing a touchdown to win the game, they go 8 plays, 38 yards, and turn it over on downs from the Green Bay 27. So Green Bay come out of it with a win, but man, they had to get lucky to do it.
Yeah, thank God I buried my lead when I mentioned this guy earlier, because the reason I said it is because I can bring up his take about this game. Sorry to be the annoying defensive Packers guy, but I keep seeing this narrative with them basically saying that, pointing out that the Packers were 1 second away from losing to the Cowboys, barely beat the Bengals, barely beat the Cardinals, both of whom technically starting backup QBs. Yeah, he rates them high because obviously he's a fan of them. Nobody's saying they're perfect, but how is it that when they beat Arizona by more than Seattle, San Francisco, Indiana, and Colts all did, only the Packers wins considered a bad win? I don't know. They're not good. They're fucking riding off the first couple of weeks where, okay, they beat us. We weren't fully prepared. Fair play. You beat the Commanders on a short week. Fair. You did great there, but as we see now, the Commanders aren't it this year. They're not what they were last year. Since then, you've had 2 really scrappy wins where you've been bad. You got beaten by the Browns when the Browns didn't even score 2 touchdowns. And then you draw to the Cowboys, who I know we've just spent a lot of things saying they're back on offense, but their defense isn't all that. You're leading the NFC North and the NFC on a technicality with your fucking weird ass tie. The Cardinals were in this game and they were starting Jacoby Brissett, who isn't great. And Brissett was the best of the 2 passers in this game. They really need to have a look at it, because without Josh Jacobs fully healthy, this offense isn't there for them. That's enough ranting about the Packers. I'm here for the Trey McBride breakout. I love Trey McBride, and I'm glad he got those 2 touchdowns. And he arguably, I know I tweeted about it on Sunday. Right now, Trey McBride's probably the best tight end in the league.
Yeah. I have had it with people saying about Trey McBride, he's this ascending player, or you kind of said it just then, and I have an issue with it. Breakout. Like, he's the best tight end in the league. How much can he realistically break out at this point? He was already there last season, frankly.
So when I say break, I mean for this season. Like, obviously, there was that whole... Because I had him in fantasy last season. I loved him last season. I drafted him in most of my leagues. It's just, he's finally getting the targets again, because early into the season, it has been very much the Marvin Harrison and Zay Jones show. Now, Brissett's there. They're finally remembering, oh, shit, we've got the best tight end in the league on our roster. We need to use him. Also, fair play to Bam Knight, Jonathan Knight, who I know we live on this podcast, being the leading rusher in the game as well. Love it. And I don't think people love the fact that we skipped one of the games, especially since it's the best game of the weekend.
Oh yeah, Giants Broncos. Whoops. Broncos win by 1 point, 33-32 after going into the fourth quarter scoreless, down 19-0 entering the fourth quarter, and then go on some mazy run. Now, they were in scoring position going into the fourth quarter and then scored a touchdown pretty instantly, so slightly fake in that way in terms of it's not like they started a drive at the start of the fourth quarter, but still, Jackson Dart, less than 50% completion rate, but still looks like an absolute baller. New York had trouble moving the ball on the ground, I think, even though Tyrone Tracy went at 5 yards a carry. Scatterboo got the majority of the reps and he was held in the 4 yards a carry. Denver did a lot of damage on the ground. Knicks wasn't great early, came alive in the fourth quarter. All in all, fantastic game, kind of feel a bit for the New York Giants.
Yeah, because they lost by 1 and their kicker missed 2 extra points. And now he's been cut. Mostly because Graham Gano is going to come off our injury reserve this week, which is good for them, but it must suck for them. What more can Jackson Dart do? I know obviously he threw the interception and that, but through those first 3 quarters up into the inception, he was pretty damn good. Scatterboo did Scatterboo things. Daniel Bellinger, I know obviously we just mentioned that the whole thing with saying about tight end breakouts and that, but Bellinger's having a tight end breakout this season. He's the breakout tight end of this season. 3 catches, 88 yards, a touchdown. Obviously, that's with a long of 44, which kind of inflates the numbers, but he's doing good. Theo Johnson, 3 catches, 66 yards and a touchdown with a long of 41. They found a system that works. It's just, for some reason, they just fell apart in that fourth quarter. The coaching came through as much as Russell Wilson wants to bitch about Sean Payton on Twitter today. Sean Payton is obviously the better coach out of the two. And in the end, that and the talent differential between the two teams won over in the end. But it's a bit scary for that Denver defense that, the Giants aren't all that on offense, much as I've just bigged them up. And they gave up 32 points to them. And at some points, they just looked completely lost on defense. When you've got one of the best defensive players in the league in PS2, and you've got someone that a load of people are putting as the leader and defensive player of the year race in Nick Benito, and he has one of the worst plays in the entire game where he's so early on the rush. I know he's trying to time the snap, but it's so obvious that he's going to get an offside, and he still does it.
Next up, Sunday Night Football, Falcons losing to the 49ers 20-10. I foolishly thought the Falcons could carry their form over to this game, and they were just beaten by Christian McCaffrey, who really carried the team. Mac Jones, pretty uninspiring, 17 for 26, 152, no touchdowns and a pick. But McCaffrey, 129 on the ground and 2 touchdowns, and led the team in receiving by more than double the next person, 7 of 8 for 72. Penix didn't do a lot wrong, 21 of 38, 241, a touchdown, no picks, but they couldn't get it down on the ground. Robinson went 14 carries for 40 yards. Algier 4 for 16. That's really what did for them. The 49ers, they're a real team, and they can do it without their starting quarterback.
Yeah, it kind of helps that we had the bad Penix come out. This is obviously, they had the great win against the Bills, where he was on fire. This is what happens when he's not that. They just don't win. They've got a great defense. Raheem Morris has done wonders with that. The fact that they held this pretty damn good 49ers offense, I know obviously without most of their receivers and with a backup QB, but hold them to 20 points. They did well, but Penix just wasn't there. The inception, the fumble lost. It hurt them. Obviously, the main takeaway and tick off the bingo card, Tatum Buffoon breakout at linebacker, 10 tackles, 1 TFL. That's the guy I remember from a couple of years ago.
Final game of the slate, the other Monday Night Football game, Texans fall to the Seahawks 27-19. Stroud under 50% completion, 23-49, 229 touchdown and a pick. He led the team in rushing on 2 carries. 2 for 25. Nick Chubb, 5 for 16. Woody Marks, 10 for 15. Houston couldn't get anything going on the ground against this defense. And Jigba goes for another 100-yard game with a touchdown. He had 60% of the receiving yards in this game for Seattle. Darnold didn't exactly have a great stat line himself, 17 of 31 for 213, a touchdown and a pick. But at the end of the day, this game was fairly clear cut. I think Seattle went out to a 14-0 lead early and just kind of rode that all the way down. Houston did bring it back to a 5-point game after a fumble 6, but I don't think this game was ever in question. And, Houston, now 2-4, have to be saying that they're a bit in trouble, especially with the Colts doing so well. And with Jacksonville doing so well, to be fair.
Exactly. And again, it's not like it's kind of like I just said with the Falcons. The Texans' defense was good in this game to the point where initially, like, the Seahawks aren't getting too much to the point where they have to try and get a trick play with Cooper Kupp throwing the ball to try and get things started. Of course, that was instantly picked off because, come on, didn't you learn our lesson from us doing it against the Commanders with JMO? But yeah, just Smith and Jigba. Okay, we'll keep saying breakout seasons. He is just having the season of seasons. If Puka didn't have the injury, he'd probably be up there with Smith and Jigba right now for the things like Smith and Jigba's on the path to beat the receiving yards record right now if he continues on, which I don't doubt, considering he's pretty much their really good weapon that's not called AJ Barner. And Torrey Horton, obviously, but 3 targets, no catches for him. Sucks. But yeah, just Houston could not get it going on the ground. The fact that, you say Stroud led them in rushing with 2 carries. Woody Marks is seen as like their sort of big guy they get right now in terms of the best running back they have. Obviously, people might remember him from him tearing us apart in the preseason. But when he had 10 carries to 15 yards, with a long of 11, that means on his other 9 carries, he got 4 yards. All that says to me is Mike McDonald, the Seahawks coach, if it wasn't for the Colts, he'd be my pick for coach of the year right now.
Yeah, 100%. All right, that is week 7 in the books. Ash, anything you want to say before we sign off?
Kind of sad now. We've got the bye week. I want more Lions football, but instead I'm going to have to sit down and watch the other teams for this week, which sucks bones.
There we go. All right. The Lions are on bye. The coaches, the players, they're all on bye. We are also going to take a bye week. So no show on Thursday on the main podcast. We'll be back on the main show on Monday next week. We'll be looking back at the half season that has been in depth for the Lions, but also around the league. What are the storylines? How do you think the rest of the season is going to go? What do the Lions need to change? All of that stuff is going to be on the agenda. We will be back with a college show tomorrow, looking back at the weekend that was. Plenty of coaches fired. Lots to talk about for Ant and Ryan on that show, so please do check that out. You'll see us on our socials still. We're always going to be active for that. We're all Lions UK, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And the Facebook group for Worldwide Fans, Detroit Lions Fans, UK One Pride Worldwide. The website, rotluk.com. You'll find Ash's preview articles on there. Just remains for me to thank everybody for listening and watching. Ash for doing this with me. And I hope you all have a great bye week yourselves. 13 days of feeling good about a Lions victory before we roll on against the Vikings. Let's go Lions One Pride.
One Pride.
Recording stopped.